A very good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Edu-ca-te. Today we're going to be doing our practice number 4 on the topic of human reproduction. So do tell me in the comments if you're having challenges with all these topics, then I'll try to make as maximum videos as I can. So now in this one we're given the diagram below showing a part of the menstrual cycle in humans. So remember that the menstrual cycle, we're just looking at the two cycles, the menstrual and the ovarian cycle, all of those. So here we're just given a picture showing just a part of it, but just from telling we can see that this is likely to be the ovaries. So remember, before we start answering the questions, the ovaries are just somewhere here. This is the female reproductive system. Here it is. So the ovaries are just located just below the fallopian tubes, and just know that at the ovaries, that is where the ovum or the egg cell of the female will be produced. So now this is just a picture zooming inward, zooming in the ovaries. So now we have got a lot of things here, and we have to, think properly before we actually answer the question. So it is good to carefully analyze everything. So now here you can see that here at this point, at point C, we've got these little round things which we don't know what they are, but then it looks like they are developing as they approach this image, which is B. Let me just use a brighter pen. So here it looks like as they are moving from being C, they are becoming more larger as they are approaching this diagram, which is B. And then after B, it becomes even more larger, approaching a diagram A. And then after A, it looks like it actually bursts and releases something. And just after releasing something, it looks like it shrinks and shrinks and shrinks and becomes way much smaller. So this is clear what it is, definitely clear. So by analyzing this, we have seen that there's some blood vessel that is bringing something inside this one, and there's some blood vessel that is taking something outside of the ovaries. So we need to think of analyzing all of those things. So now let us start answering questions. 3.2.1, we're told to identify what is structure C. As I've already indicated, that structure C is the smallest of these balls, these smallest balls. So remember that during the menstrual cycle, we can definitely see that this is the development of the ovum, right? So we start always with the follicles. So C is the follicles actually. So it is the follicles, just the follicles. So you may call it a primary follicle because it is the smallest one. It is the smallest follicle before anything starts to happen, before it develops into an ovum. So it is too small. So now we continue. They say now, name the cycle. Name the cycle. Remember, whenever they talk of a cycle, they talk of something that repeatedly happens. So they say, name the cycle shown in the diagram above, which forms part of the menstrual cycle. So remember, I've said that the menstrual cycle is formed of two cycles actually. So it is formed of the ovarian cycle as well as the uterine cycle. So when we're talking about the menstrual cycle, we're talking about two things: the changes that happened at the ovaries as well as the changes that happened at the uterus. So during the menstrual cycle, so whenever we say we're talking about the menstrual cycle, we're talking about the changes that are happening here at this point, and the changes that are also happening inside here at the uterus. So now this one is actually changes that are happening at the at the ovaries. So it is the ovarian cycle. So this cycle here forms the part of the menstrual cycle which is called the ovarian cycle, because it is describing the changes that are happening in the ovaries. So now let us continue. So now arrange the letters A to E in the correct sequence of their appearance in the cycle. So listen carefully to this question. It says we should arrange the letters A to E A, B, C, D, E. We should arrange them in accordance to their appearance, in a sequence, in the correct sequence of their appearance. We've already identified the trend that C is the smallest. It develops to become something like B, and it develops and become big again like A, and A releases something here which is F, and then this structure will start to degenerate and become something like E, and it will become eventually smaller and become D. So that is basically the sequence there, because it is explaining the changes that are happening to the smallest primary follicle. Okay, so it is as it is developing due to the hormones and the oogenesis processes, it becomes bigger and bigger, and it releases the ovum at this point on day 14 of the menstrual cycle, and then it will start to degenerate. It will start to become smaller first of all, shrink and shrink and shrink until it degenerates. So now let us now answer the question. The correct sequence, it starts from the smallest, which is C, and then from the smallest, which is C, it grows to B, because B is slightly bigger than C, right? And then B grows to what? Grows to A, and then from A it grows to, we cannot mention F because we have to mention the letters A to E, right? So we are just counting A, B, C, D, E. We're not involving F. So now E, it is this, now this structure is starting to degenerate, and then last is D. So we have arranged A, B, C, D, E, but then we have arranged them in accordance to their appearance. Remember, this one is the smallest. It grows here at A, and then it releases something, then it starts to degenerate, it shrinks, and eventually will degenerate. So this is the correct sequence for 2 marks. And then now they say now draw a labeled diagram. We have to draw a labeled diagram. Please note, whenever this question that involves drawing something, remember one thing: a caption is always needed. Do not even start drawing a certain diagram without captioning it or giving it some description. You must write a caption first, so before even thinking of drawing whatever that might be. So please make sure that you remember that. So now we are supposed to draw a labeled diagram of gamete F. So now F, we can see F is being released from this structure A here. It grows and it will release this thing F. We know that F, whenever we release something during this ovarian cycle, the process is called ovulation. So it means we are releasing the ovum or the egg cell, the one that will be fertilized by the sperm cell. That one, yes, the egg cell is a gamete. Whenever they say it's a gamete, it means it's a sex cell. Yes, it's a sex cell, or it's a gamete, something that will eventually make a baby. So it is released from the what? It is released from this follicle, this Graafian follicle, or this big follicle, and then now we have to draw its structure. So now let us start by writing our caption. We have to say that maybe you can say diagram of the ovum or something like that, or you can say diagram of the ovum, something like that, as long as you caption it. So remember, the ovum, it is round like, it's an egg cell, it's a round like, and then it has got couple of layers. It has got couple of layers. Let me just do something like this, and it has got some structure here. So now let us just maybe apply some color there so that it becomes a bit better. So now in an ovum, you know that at this outer part, or this outer layer, it is called what? It is called the layer of jelly. So just know, whenever you draw an ovum, it must contain an outer layer called the layer of jelly. So this is our layer of jelly. Remember, the function of the layer of jelly is to protect this ovum as it is developing, right? Yeah, during its developmental stages, before it gets fertilized by the sperm cells. So now this layer of jelly protects the ovum, and then now we go to the inner layer, this inner part here, this inner part of the ovum, we call it the cytoplasm. And then now the innermost part, this solid ball-like structure, it is called the nucleus of the ovum. You should know that the cytoplasm is for nutrition, right? It provides nutrition, meaning that it actually feeds this ovum because it needs some nutrients to survive. So the cytoplasm is that fluid that is filled within a cell that is responsible for providing that nutrition. So you can make another label here and say this is a cell membrane of this ovum, cell membrane, because it is the one that is covering the whole ovum. Note that the cell membrane is not covering the layer of jelly. The layer of jelly is the outermost layer, and then inside you will then find the cell membrane here. So now this is how you draw a label structure of the ovum. Whenever they are marking, let me tell you how they mark a drawing. So first of all, the criteria, it is the caption. That is the first mark that you're gonna get. Even if you make a correct drawing without a caption, then you will lose the marks. Remember, this is 4 marks. And then the labels is the second mark. So the labels, they mark at least 2 correct labels, but I recommend you to at least have 3 correct labels in a diagram. Do not write any labels, or do not label less than 3 labels. So at least have 3 of them. That will count for 2 marks. And then they will mark the correct drawing. The correct drawing is 1 mark. So that makes it 4 marks as a whole. So this is how you answer the questions that ask you to draw something. Make sure that you caption it before you think even of drawing whatever it is. The moment you see the word diagram, make sure you write caption first, so that, because many of people forget this, even I did forget this last year in my exams, but eventually I did well. But here, whenever you deal with the ovum, whenever you deal with diagrams, make sure you caption first. So now let us go to another question. So this gets us our 4 marks, and then now we go to this question here. It says a high concentration of which 2 reproductive hormones will be supplied by blood vessel X. So this question is somewhat not structured well, but then here let me try to break it down. So now they are saying that blood vessel X, this blood vessel here, this one which I'm painting with green, yes, this blood vessel, can you see that it is bringing something in? We can see by this arrow here. Well, let me just wrap a bit here. Yes, you can see just by this arrow here. This arrow here shows that the blood vessels is bringing something into the ovum, or into the ovaries. Remember that this structure is the ovaries, right? So now blood vessel A is bringing something into the ovaries. But then what is it bringing? So now they're saying it is bringing something that has a high concentration. So remember, blood vessels, they transport blood. So what will be in the blood that will be needed by the ovum? So this brings us to this thing of hormones. Remember that hormones are chemicals that are transported through the blood, always. So whenever you see blood and you see ovaries, those 2 things, just know that they have something to do with hormones, because that is the only way a hormone can travel from the brain, for example, from the pituitary gland all the way to the ovum, to the ovaries, right? So from the pituitary gland up there, they move through the blood vessels. So which 2 reproductive hormones will be brought in by blood vessel X? The fact that there is this arrow that is bringing in, we know that there is only 2 hormones that are brought into the ovaries. So now let us answer question 3.2.5a. 3.2.5a. So we know that the hormones that can be brought into the ovaries are coming from the pituitary gland. They are the pituitary hormones. That is luteinizing hormone as well as follicle stimulating hormone. This one is brought to stimulate ovulation, whereas this one, the FSH, is brought to mature those primary follicles, to grow this part C to become bigger, just like B. So yes, so those are the 2 reproductive hormones that will be supplied by blood vessel X. And then now we go to blood vessel Why? So now they say a high concentration of which two reproductive hormones will be transported to the other structures by blood vessel Y. So you can note here that blood vessel Y is transporting the hormones outside of the ovaries. They are moving away from the ovaries because of this arrow that indicates that something is leaving the ovaries. So now, which hormones actually leave the ovaries through the blood? So we know that we have got only two ovarian hormones as well. So the ovarian hormones that we have got estrogen. Remember, estrogen is the one that stimulates the endometrium to become thicker and thicker, and progesterone that will be released by a corpus luteum. Progesterone. So there we have it. So these are the hormones. These ones, the LH as well as the FSH, they come in through the blood vessels, whereas the estrogen and the progesterone, they leave the ovaries and they go to the uterus. So they actually move like this, just from here, and they go here to the endometrium. Both of these hormones, yes, but then they are not released necessarily all at once, but they all come from the ovaries. Those are ovarian hormones. Then 3.2.6, we are asked to explain how the formation of structure D will lead to the start of the next menstrual cycle. So remember, we've said a menstrual cycle, we are just having repeated events. So it means that the development of this follicle from being C all the way up to being D, it will start again just from being D and will go back to being C again, continuously like that. That is the menstrual, that is particular, this is the ovarian cycle. So now they say explain how the formation of structure D will lead to the start of the next menstrual cycle. We have already written out a sequence of the menstrual cycle, that it starts at C, which is the primary follicle, and ends at this degenerated corpus luteum, right? So now it starts at the follicles, the primary ones, and ends at the corpus luteum, the shrinked corpus luteum. So the formation of this shrinked corpus luteum, or part D, this one, the small one, the formation, how will it lead to the next menstrual cycle? So remember that the corpus luteum secretes progesterone. That is the hormone that is secreted by the corpus luteum. So now when the corpus luteum is degenerating, or it is becoming smaller, just like part D here, for you to form part D coming from E, it has to get smaller and smaller, right? So it means that there will be less progesterone secreted. So let me just write here 3.2.6. so now first of all, part D will degenerate. Part D, or you can say that the corpus luteum will degenerate, right? We want to know how will that make a new follicle to actually start to develop. So part D, or the corpus luteum, will degenerate, and when it degenerates, there will be what? Less progesterone produced. Less progesterone will be produced, definitely less, because it is the one that produces the progesterone, right? So when it is being destroyed, or when it is degenerating, then it will do what? It will definitely secrete less progesterone, and when it secretes less progesterone, then now the concentration of FSH will increase. So you can say that FSH will increase. Why do I have to say this statement? Because remember, for the menstrual cycle to start, that is for this particle C, this primary follicle, to grow bigger and bigger, you need follicle stimulating hormone, FSH, from the pituitary gland. So when progesterone is secreted, it actually stops the secretion of FSH. So now that there is less progesterone that is secreted, then the FSH will increase, and this will eventually cause the next cycle to occur or to begin. So now I think you can get marks for saying that part D, or the corpus luteum, will do what? Will degenerate, causing less progesterone to be produced, right? And when there is less progesterone produced, there will be FSH, or you can just say a statement like FSH will no longer be inhibited, or will no longer be stopped from being secreted. And when there is now FSH being secreted, then definitely the menstrual cycle will begin again. So you can say menstrual cycle will begin again, and that can also serve a mark. So please tell me if you're having challenges on dealing with the problems regarding the menstrual cycle. Thank you for watching, and good luck for your June exams.